Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. We're going to go ahead and switch gears, and I do want to talk about the bigger picture conversation of the playoff. Because the one thing that I noticed, there was a lot in common with all four of these games, and they were all essentially blowouts, okay? Ohio State beats Tennessee by 25 points. Penn State beats SMU by 28. Indiana, everybody's, Indiana is so bad, they stink. They end up losing by 10, although that was deceptive. It was 27-3 with, 4 minutes to go before Indiana scored quickly and then kicked an onside kick, scored again. And then, of course, even Texas Clemson, it was 14 points. At times it felt closer. At times it didn't. I want to talk about the blowouts. But first of all, let me say this. I did find it kind of funny, the narratives that kind of emerged on social media over the course of the games, right? Because on Friday night, it was Indiana stinks and Indiana doesn't belong. And I'll say this, I like Kirk Herbstreit. But even on Saturday's College Game Day, I thought he jumped the gun a little bit. Oh, Indiana didn't belong. They shouldn't have been there. They were 11-1, but who'd they beat? Then SMU loses. And all of a sudden, it's all the same people. Paul Feinbaum, Peter Burns, who I actually had on this show a long time ago. He was a very nice guy. But the clown show of, well, this is who Indiana played. This is who SMU played. Well, then what ends up happening? Clemson actually plays Texas a little bit closer than we thought or many people expected. But then when Tennessee gets their butt kicked, it was amazing how quiet the pro-SEC fans got. And so to me, I think there's a small picture reason why all of the opening round games were a blowout. But I also think there's a big picture reason that we probably have to talk about, okay? So the small picture reason on why there were so many blowouts in the college football playoff, again, 4 games, all on home fields, no neutral sites in round 1. And oh, by the way, all 4 of the higher ranked teams that were at home won. And so to me, the first reason that we got the results we did, it's pretty freaking obvious. It's because it's really hard to win on the road in college football. I said this before, but I was thinking about this, think about all those big Saturday night SEC games on ESPN, right? The Herbstreit Fowler games, right? Think about all of them. Alabama beats Georgia at home. Georgia beats Tennessee at home. I know it wasn't a nighttime kickoff, but Tennessee beats Alabama at home. LSU beats Ole Miss. Then a week later, LSU loses at Texas A&M. Texas A&M we think is a player. Then they lose at South Carolina. Texas A&M also loses at Auburn at night. And so you go on and on down the list. I could keep going. It just felt like every single week there were big games, and every single week you just had to take the home team because the home team usually ended up winning. And so to me, it shouldn't be a surprise that we got a 12-team college football playoff in which there were 4 games, that were on-campus sites. By the way, I said it to lead the show if you missed it. On-campus sites are amazing. I actually hope we do more of it going forward. I think the quarterfinals should be on-campus sites. I love the Rose Bowl. I live 10 minutes from the Rose Bowl. I think Oregon, Ohio State should be in Eugene. I think Notre Dame, Georgia should be in Athens. I think, Texas, Boise, whatever it is. I think these games should be on campus sites. I think it'd be great. But I also bring it up because that's kind of the reason that we got the results that we did. Because when SMU lost and Indiana, it's this team stinks and that team's terrible. And if Alabama was here, things would be so different. Why couldn't we get Alabama? Why couldn't we get Ole Miss? Well, it's who's to say that things would have been better? Because first off, it's really hard to win on the road. Alabama, by the way, and I'm not even trying to do the whole Alabama, Ole Miss, SEC versus everybody else take, but that's part of it, right? Alabama lost. They played 4 road games. They lost 3 times, okay? Tennessee was the best defense they played all season long. In the second half of that game, they did not score a single point. They averaged 2.2 yards per carry. So don't sell me that this would have been so different if Alabama had been in the playoff instead of SMU, or Alabama had been in the playoff instead of Indiana. Really? Because Alabama scored 3 points in their last road game of the year at Oklahoma. And you're convinced that they would have gone to Notre Dame and been that much better? Stop it. By the way, Ole Miss All they had to do was beat Georgia second to last week of the regular season, or beat Florida, excuse me, second to last week of the regular season in the swamp. I know Florida was a lot better with DJ Lagway, but they couldn't do it. So now you're convinced that they're going to go to Penn State and win? Stop it, okay? And so first off, my biggest takeaway on why we had blowouts was I just think it's really hard to win on the road, especially when inherently the road team is not as good as the home team. The home team is favored, and in every game, including Tennessee, Ohio State, the home team obviously had a home field advantage. It's not a neutral field. It's not the Fiesta Bowl. It's not the Rose Bowl. Even at Ohio State, even if there were 30,000 Tennessee fans, that's still a 70-30 Ohio State advantage. So one, I believe we had a lot of blowouts because it's just pretty straightforward. It's kind of hard to win on the road. But also, here is the big picture reason why I believe we saw a lot of blowouts and why I don't believe that we are not going to see blowouts going forward. And this is going to hurt. And it's going to be a little bit of Debbie Downer kind of conversation. And I don't want to be a Debbie Downer after the first week of the college football playoff in the 12-team era. But here's the truth. There aren't 12 great teams in college football. And when you make a playoff with 12 teams, inherently some of them are going to be flawed. Inherently some of them aren't going to be very good. And inherently we're going to have freaking blowouts in this playoff, okay? And listen, again, I don't want to be Debbie Downer. I don't want to be negative Nancy. But here's the bottom line. If you have listened to this show for years, what has my stance always been on a 12-team playoff? I never thought we should have expanded the playoff in the first place. Because in my opinion, there were never 12, most years we couldn't get to 4 great teams that were actually good enough to win a national championship, okay? So now we're going to go ahead and add 8 more teams to things after the fact. I'm sorry, I don't know if that's the right move, and I said all along, I said when you take a playoff that was 4 teams and you triple it, and we couldn't even get 4 great teams in most years, we are going to inherently not get very good teams towards the end. And so I hate to say it, but I think that's the truth. Now, I've gotten to the point where I'm okay with expansion. We're here, whatever. By the way, I hear people say all the time, well, Torres, you like college basketball and they have 68 teams. So why is this any different? Well, it's different for 2 reasons. One, because first off, let's never forget that, yes, we have a great 68-team NCAA basketball tournament. But here's the thing. Nobody cares about the college basketball regular season. I wish they did. I love college basketball. I watch regular season college basketball. Nobody cares about college basketball till the middle or end of February. It's just the truth. And so they've expanded that conference championship so much that the regular season doesn't matter at all. By the way, it's kind of the same with the NBA, kind of the same with Major League Baseball. And so with college football, I said every other sport is trying to get people interested in their regular season. The NBA has this lame, NBA Cup. Major League Baseball is trying to do all this crazy stuff, play games in cornfields and go to London and do this and do that. College basketball has a million tournaments to try to get people to care about the sport in November and December. College football already had the best regular season, and now it has been devalued. And you can't tell me that it hasn't been. And this isn't an anti-regular season stance, but the games don't mean as much. They just don't. Ohio State loses to Michigan. They're still in the college football playoff. Tennessee lost at Arkansas. Didn't matter. Penn State loses to Ohio State, and everybody you kind of want to freak out, but you can't really freak out because we all knew they were going to lose to Ohio State, and it doesn't really matter because they're still in position to make the playoff. And so I just bring it up because this was always my argument with a 12-team playoff. There aren't 12 great teams. We struggle to get to 4, and all you're going to do is inherently add teams that aren't good enough to win a championship. And so when I look at the 12-team playoff, listen, this is the gift. This is the curse of a 12-team playoff. It's more games. It's more games that matter. But the counter to that is that when you have more games than matter, you have more teams, and inherently they're not all the same. And so it doesn't really matter if it's this year, next year, year before, year after. We're going to get flawed teams in. And by the way, it's not just the teams that we're in. Yes, SMU was flawed. Yes, Indiana was flawed. But here's a dirty little secret. Alabama was flawed too. I hate to tell you, Alabama really had no offense except for chucking the ball up to Ryan Williams and praying, and also Jalen Milroe running the football. And what happens when you slow down Jalen Milroe? They lost at Tennessee. They got destroyed by a bad Oklahoma team, and don't tell me Oklahoma somehow figured things out in the back half of the year. No. Oklahoma lost a week later to LSU. Oklahoma had lost their previous 3 FBS games prior to playing Alabama. So don't tell me that Oklahoma has some secret sauce to beat Alabama. No, Alabama was flawed. Now, if they had gotten in, I wouldn't have really fought it. It is what it is. By the way, Ole Miss was flawed. Don't tell me they weren't. They played Kentucky at home and couldn't beat them. We're going to talk about Lane Kiffin in a minute, but I just bring it up because I think this is the reality of the 12-team playoff. And I'll also add this, something else we talked about. I think with these imbalanced leagues, with these 18, 17, 16-team leagues, this is going to keep happening. It's all going to be about who's on your schedule, who do you take advantage of, who do you not take advantage of, and who do you play and who do you not? Because you'll look at basically everybody that played yesterday. What was the secret? They kind of avoided the best teams in the regular season in their conference. Ohio State didn't, and that's why they were playing in an 8-9 game instead of as a first-round bye. But look at the teams that were playing yesterday. Tennessee, I can tell you who they beat. They beat the 4th best team in the SEC. That was Alabama. And then they proceeded to beat the 10th best team in the SEC, Florida, in overtime, the 12th best team, Vandy, the 13th best team, Oklahoma, the 15th best team, Kentucky, the 16th best team, Mississippi State. That's indisputable. They avoided Texas in the regular season. They avoided South Carolina in the regular season. They avoided Ole Miss. They avoided LSU. So part of it is just an imbalanced schedule. It's not just an Indiana thing. It's also a Tennessee thing. It's also, by the way, a Texas thing. That was my big thing all weekend. Texas, if you're arguing SMU shouldn't be in, there's nothing on Texas' resume that says that Texas should be in. Texas did not play Tennessee, Alabama, South Carolina, LSU, Ole Miss. That's kind of in Missouri as well. These were Texas's wins against the SEC. They beat the 10th ranked team, Florida, the 11th ranked team, Arkansas, the 12th ranked team, Vandy, the 13th ranked team, Oklahoma, the 15th ranked team, Kentucky, and the 16th ranked team, Mississippi State. They didn't beat any of the other top 9 teams in the SEC if you take out Texas. And so it's not just an Indiana problem. It's a bigger picture college football problem. But I just bring it up because I think this is the future of this playoff. Is you're going to get some teams that are crazy battle tested, that are really good, that probably should have gotten buys like Ohio State. And you're also going to get teams that just because of the way the schedule broke were able to get in. There's going to be another Indiana next year. I don't know who it is. Maybe it's whoever. It's I can't think of anybody off the top of my head. Maybe it's Illinois. Maybe it's Purdue. Maybe it's whatever. But somebody's going to take advantage of a schedule where they don't play Ohio State, they don't play Michigan, they don't play whoever's good. The same in the SEC. Somebody's going to take advantage of a schedule. By the way, who it's probably going to be next year? It's probably going to be Texas as well. Look at the SEC has the same schedule, so they're going to play the same teams. Texas won't play Ole Miss. Texas won't play Tennessee. Texas won't play Alabama. And so this is the new world. We have to accept it. But I also think we have to be smarter about just, Tennessee or SMU doesn't belong. Indiana doesn't belong. It's like all these teams, once you get past team 4, 5, 6, like they're all flawed. Even Ohio State. Ohio State maybe is the best team in the country. But Ohio State also lost to a 6-5 Michigan team 3 weeks ago. So this is the reality. This is why we have so many blowouts. It's not just home field advantage. It's once you get past team 3, 4, 5, there's going to inherently be a lot of teams that are flawed. So spare me the Alabama would have definitively done better than Indiana. Really? Because the last time they played on the road, they scored 3 points. Ole Miss would have definitively been better than SMU. Really? Because the last time they went on the road, they lost to Florida as a 10.5-point favorite. No disrespect to Florida. DJ Lagway's awesome. Guess what? Penn State's better than Florida. So I don't want to hear it. And I think this is what people wanted, a 12-team college football playoff. And as my buddy Barrett Salih from Outkick said, he said the crazy thing about a 12-team playoff, you got to find 12 teams to put in that bracket. So I think that's an interesting thing. A lot of people talking about the blowouts, and I do think that's just going to be a reality of the situation.